Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, we have a very special guest, a returning guest. His name is Carl Hassell, Hassell. We've done a number of shows together. 2 shows about the Grateful Dead. The full titles of that are the Grateful Dead, the Counterculture and New Age Deception in the 60s. We also did one about the Peyote Way Church of God, which he was affiliated with. And the title is The Strange Tale of Spies, Lies, and the Peyote Way Church. And then our most recent one, which was just in February, was about, and I titled this, The Strange World of Frank Zappa, who is maybe much more interesting character than people might know. But also, a huge countercultural figure, much like the Dead. But today we're going to talk about his time at Berkeley. I went to school there. I was there from late 80s, early 90s. Actually worked in some of these places that he's going to go show pictures some. I lived on Haste Street across from what was Cody's Books. That bookstore isn't there anymore, but right off of Telegraph. But so I know some of these areas and some of the subject matter. Actually worked at a smoke shop right off campus, believe it or not. But I've titled this The Berkeley Meth Memoir of researcher Carl Hassell. So we could probably have a newer title. I'm not sure, but we'll see where this goes. So Carl, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back. From the spring of 1975 to the very end of December 1979, I was homeless and did a lot of cross-country and long-distance hitchhiking. In the fall of 1975, I pulled into Berkeley. I had just turned 18 years old. I set up shop at a place called the Stark Hotel on University Avenue. It was a transient hotel, a lot of drug dealers and crazy people and freaks. I got some floor space there, and I would bebop around Berkeley, having fun, getting loaded. And one day I met some very shiny, smiley young girls that invited me up to their house to have a dinner and learn about the community they were part of. And I was interested in the free meal, and I went up there for several nights, had the free meal and listened to their little lecture. And I agreed to go up to their 600-acre ranch in Boonville, and it turned out to be a Unification Church front. They were operating under the name the Creative Community Project. Well, after an intense weekend, I came out a true believer and was convinced Moon was the Messiah and was going to save America. I was lazy. I just wanted to get high, although I was a true believer, and I didn't win any converts, and I didn't sell anything. They would put me out on a MFTs, a mobile fundraising team, with a bunch of roses or baby tea roses and carnations, and go cold call from door to door. And I would go find a Christian Science reading room or a library and just read all day or get high, and then go back to the bus when it was time to go back home. And in mid-June of 76, they got tired of me, and they threw me and 3 other guys out on the same day because we weren't pulling our weight. I ended up...
They're still there. The Moonies are still active there. They're still
and
close
that
to
house
Souther
is now
Gate.
officially the Unification Church headquarters. They don't hide it anymore up there at the top of Hearst Avenue.
Yeah, north side.
2027 yeah. Hearst Avenue. Yeah. I also spent a lot of time in back of the Hearst Greek Theater. At the time, it was all wooded up there, and there was a horizontal area where you could lay down and look out over Berkeley, Oakland, and see the Golden Gate Bridge. Tremendous view. Nowadays, it's all buildings for the Lawrence Livermore Lab, and it's gated parking and a parking lot. All the trees are gone. All the wild area is gone. I did a lot of hitchhiking back and forth, as I said, and I actually enjoyed it. It's a hard thing to do. It's hard. But I enjoyed the solitude and the freedom, and I was lucky. Nothing bad ever happened to me, and I never had to compromise myself for a ride. There's a lot of rules you need to do to have a safe and efficient hitchhiking journey. I'm going to leave out my Arizona portion of my adventures for time's sake, but I did a lot of bouncing around back and forth between Berkeley and Grand Canyon, hanging out with the Havasupai Indians up there. They took me in, and I'm still friends with the tribe today. In Berkeley, I ended up being in a violent drug movie called Who Will Stop the Rain. There's going to be some pictures of that later, a couple of stills I took. And I also went back home and did an interview with the local paper regarding the Unification Church. And I ended up getting some products pulled off of the shelves at drugstores and health food stores they were selling ginseng products from a company called Ilwa Pharmaceuticals, and it was a Unification Church front. And back then, there was only snail mail and phone calls, but I did manage to get some of the products pulled off after my interview. I went back to Berkeley with an old buddy who I'm still in contact. We'll see him later. I ended up getting involved with an amphetamine lab, making methamphetamine sulfate and methamphetamine hydrochloride.
What's the difference? What's the difference?
The sulfate has much more of a burn to it, and the super tweaks seem to prefer that. That's all I can tell you about that.
And that was always a connection between Hell's Angels and meth, right?
Yes. Well, as it turned out, I started out as a dishwasher. I would stand at the sink and wash all the glassware with benzene and assorted bottle brushes. The chemist was affiliated with the Hell's Angels, and half of our product went to somebody in the Angels, and the other half was split between me and another guy, and we would gram it up and sell it to a small clientele in Berkeley and Oakland. Now, the vacuum filtering flask, the 2 and 3 neck boiling flasks, the ring stands, the rack, the distillation kit, and the stirring rods and the Etna all came from the UC Berkeley chemistry department. And this was the old recipes that were in the chemistry books where you use phenylpropanone, P2P. You can't get that anymore. The feds put a hard clamp on that about 1980.
How would you guys get all the ingredients?
Well, the phenylpropanone, the benzene, the hydrochloride gas, and the ether all came from a drug warehouse, chemical warehouse that was robbed. I don't know who robbed it. If I did, I wouldn't tell you. But we had a 5-gallon can of ether, a 5-gallon can of benzene, a tank of hydrochloride gas, and a jug of phenyl 2-propanone.
It's dangerous to make meth. I mean, it's
yes.
Meth labs. So you guys were making meth in Berkeley?
No, that was in Crockett, over by the Carquinez Bridge, right a couple blocks away from the C&H sugar factory. It was a big old Victorian house this guy inherited from his parents when they died. And he had a meth lab in the garage, which was attached to the kitchen. There was one way in and one way out through the kitchen. I wasn't there. I didn't take part in the precursor when it was set up. I was at the end process for the distillation and crystallization. And what would happen is, well, the chemist was a heroin addict, and he supported his habit by making crank. What would happen is I would come in we didn't have ventilation or eyewear. I just had a bandana around my face and my mouth and nose. The distillation goes into a funnel, and the funnel is hooked up to a filtration flask with a vacuum on it. And then you add hydrochloride gas to it, and the funnel fills up with a yellow-white smoke, kind of like dry ice smoke, but much thicker. It was like a thick white cloud. And then you pour ether onto it, and the vacuum sucks everything down through the funnel, through the filtration. And what you're left with after everything's vacuumed out is a big old aspirin. It's a solid chunk of methamphetamine, hydrochloride, or sulfate. And then, as I said, half went to the Angels. We did a handoff.
Did you have to cut it?
No, we didn't cut it at all. And it was called water on the street because you could put your 10 cc's or whatever from the syringe into the thing, and there was no sediment. We didn't cut it at all. It was extremely strong. And as I said, we only sold it in grams. Nobody got 8 balls or quarter ounces or anything like that. We did the handoff for the Angels at a methadone clinic in Oakland. We'd give it to somebody.
Wasn't their main place in Oakland? Was it Salinger? I forgot the guy's name who was the head at that time. Forgot his, but I think Barger
was the head of the Oakland Angels.
Barger, yeah. I think he was the head of the whole nationwide Hell's Angels as well.
Yeah, he eventually absorbed everything. There was a gang in Phoenix, the Double D's or the Devil's Disciples, and by the mid-'90s, they were absorbed in the Angels too, and it's now Hell's Angels. But
they were so much more violent back then. Like now, these motorcycle clubs are a bunch of like yuppies. But I remember growing up in the Bay Area, and there were biker clubs full of dudes you just didn't walk into, and you watched your ground, like really heavy duty.
Oh yeah, yeah. We see them all the time out here. We live smack dab between Livermore and Modesto, and it's all Angel country. And our town
Are
is
they Are they still as dangerous as they were back in the 70s and 80s?
I have nothing to do with them now. It was always a peripheral affiliation. I was not a hanger-on. I was not a prospect. I just was in some of the rooms with them and did the drug deals with them. We see them all the time here. We live smack dab in the middle of 3 freeways, and we see them all the time on the road. And occasionally,
you're pretty much the Central Valley, right?
Yeah, Livermore and Modesto. So we still see them.
But you're after Hunter Thompson was in the Hate and wrote Hell's Angels in '67. I think they beat him up too, or pistol whipped him, or something.
Yeah, he was a goofball. No, you know, I was always partial to the Angels. I'm one of those guys, support your local Hell's Angels, like the old bumper sticker. They were the original. They were the badasses. But by the end of 1978 or 79, a lot of people turned up dead. A lot got busted. And the higher echelons were driving Fleetwood Cadillacs and Lincoln Continentals.
Wow.
So, you know.
Yeah, it was a bit. I mean, I think they controlled the meth trade, and they didn't like competitors.
They did.
So if you could end up getting a crowbar across your face if you're lucky.
Yeah, or worse.
Yeah.
I eventually got out of it because if we have enough time, we'll get into that at the end.
Ball peen hammers. I remember the ball peen hammer stories too. Like, holy smokes. So you traded with the Hells Angels. You made the place was in Crockett, which is really kind of in the North Bay, closer to Vallejo. I think it's south of Vallejo. So I'm sorry to interrupt, but go from there. So you had a cook place in Crockett. You lived in Berkeley, and the Hells Angels are in Oakland with Barger.
Yeah. I got out of it.
So hold on, let me interrupt again.
Okay.
So did you, when you did that, when you saw it, did you see Breaking Bad, and what are your thoughts about it?
Oh, yeah, I loved it. It was great.
Okay.
And I kept, remarking to my son and my wife, man, we didn't have equipment like that.
Right. But it's the same kind of quality, like you guys didn't cut yours. So
no, we didn't cut it at all. It was pure.
You know what's also interesting is around that time in Berkeley, there was a lot of other manufacturers of drugs. And I've talked to one guy who was a well-known LSD manufacturer, and they had a network. And one of the big chemists was a guy out of Berkeley, one of the big LSD chemists. So
that's the thing with Berkeley. A lot goes on there.
Yeah.
I haven't, I live 50 miles away. I haven't been over there in about a dozen years. I won't go there now. Just because
it's more dangerous. They took People's Park and put 2 huge those metal transport cages around the whole park. It's unbelievable. Like
that place was a cesspool anyway. I mean,
Well, People's Park was a disaster. It was always a disaster. But it was a focal point for all the communists, and I lived down the street, so I saw it was really. It actually was like a little bit of a prescient petri dish, like all those cities have become under these communists today, because they were trying to protect something with meaningful. The place was a cesspool of crack use, meth use, open air sex trade. It was a dump. Like, this is their paradise. Was the commie paradise? There were guys who would run around. Literally, this is when I was in college. They would have a flag with a huge communist red flag and like protecting People's Park like it had some meaning. It's such a joke,
Berkeley, man.
My subtext of Berkeley while I was there was berserkly. It's never boring because something crazy is happening all the time.
Anyway, we can go through some pictures now and do some back and forth and explaining.
Okay, let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
This is my interview, a piece of it from 1977 when I went back home. And I already explained what I did back there. And I wasn't there long. I zipped back to Berkeley, had enough of that. It's funny, but in the other picture, there's another part of the article where one of the leaders of the church say that I was a drug dealer. And that's not true. I wasn't a drug dealer when I got into the Moonies. I was a drug dealer when I got out of them. So that was kind of humorous looking back on that.
Right, they're still
whenever you want.
They're still looking for suckers.
Well, you know what? Nobody really joins the Unification Church. You get absorbed into it, and before you know what happens, you're in.
Right. Nobody thinks they're in a cult. Do you remember Wheeling Smoke Shop?
Yeah.
That's where I worked, as Wheeling Smoke Shop. It's still there. Back when they had literal magazines, they used to have these things, Carl. You can't believe it, but they didn't have the internet. They had these huge racks. And they had these paper things called magazines, and there was this huge, industry of magazines that you had to go and buy stuff to get information and underground stuff. I'm joking, but
you remember
they're all
Annapurna, right? The head shop Annapurna on
Sure.
Telegraph.
Yeah, sure. I know a lot.
They used to have a sign in there that said "No dealing" on the wall because
That's
people
funny.
would pop in and out and do quick deals in there.
Oh, I bet I saw deals going on. The coffee shops were all kinds of. There's all kinds of coffee shops around there, which are really cool. Actually, I got to go back. I'm trying to remember my favorite coffee shop. It was. Anyway, I interrupted again. Sorry. So these are your pictures.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's you, Mooney. By the way, when I was there, what they would do, the Moonies, they would have an easel with a drawing thing, and there'd be one guy drawing, talking to the other two people. But what a lot of the noobs didn't know is that all three were Moonies, and it was kind of like a 3-card Monty type thing where everybody's in on it. So then if you walked
back
up
in the 70s too, they were big competition with the Children of God. They would work opposite ends of the street simultaneously. And then you had the Krishnas down on Ashby Avenue there, Ashby and Telegraph.
Dude, it was like a sequence from the movie Airport,
Yes.
where the guy's walking
nuts,
through
yeah.
and everybody's like talking to him. It's still kind of the same. California's, I mean, I don't think it's as intense. Like, people have gotten aware of these cults and stuff like that, but yeah, they're still out there. Yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
flip away.
Yeah, let's do it.
These are some of the people from the Stark Hotel. This picture was taken in the manager's office. Now, the guy on the bottom with the beard is JC. He was a longtime resident there. And the dude hiding behind the Buddha statue is John. He was a Hoover vacuum executive that kind of vicariously liked to hang around the freak scene, and he bought a lot of alcohol for everybody. The dude sitting in the chair with his hand on his face is Leon. He was the manager of the Stark Hotel. And then the guy on the right is Blue. He's still around. I'm not going to say his real name, but he still lives in Oakland. He was a super speed freak and a great guitar player. And so was Leon, sitting with his hand on his face. He was a speed freak too. Now, the dour-looking woman here in black is Denise. All these people are gone now. They're all dead except for Blue. Denise was a trip. She was originally a beatnik and then an early hippie. And by the time I met her in 75, the picture was dated 77. But I knew them in 75 right up through 79. She was a burned out alcoholic and a barbiturate addict and was on several psychiatric medications. And she had a tattoo on her ass that said property of the Oakland Hells Angels. I saw the tattoo.
Well, I believe it. That's the way you were. If you were a woman affiliated
yeah, she was
with him.
actually what's called a hole. She was one of Terry the Tramp's holes.
It's pretty dark. It's pretty. It's pretty rough.
Yeah.
I mean, you can read the was it Acid Test by Wolf about all that stuff. Whoa.
Go ahead.
Not NR. Not what is it called? It's pretty rough stuff. What's this?
This is 1975 up in Boonville at the Chicken Palace. That was the men's quarters at the Mooney farm. Now I'm right here in the foreground with the round shoulders and the round head in the striped shirt. That's me. The guy standing up in the red shirt is Jeremiah Schnee. The dude with his hands over his head is Matthew Morrison. He was on staff. Right next to him with the guitar is his sister, Christina Morrison. They're still in. I checked on them. They're both still in the church. Wow. And the guy in the back in the blue Karka on drums is Ricky Joshwitz. He's still in too. He used to be in a band in the 60s called the One-Eyed Jacks. And those three are all still in. And I don't know about Jeremiah Schnee. He may still be in. But the girl next to me with the bow in her hair is Barbara. Her and her mother wrote a book when she was kidnapped and deprogrammed and got out. That's Barbara. And the lady to my left in the brown coat is Sandy. Those are the only names I remember there. But, yeah, that's me sitting there in the striped shirt.
Wow, that's crazy. I mean, a lot of those, I think it was Steve Hassan was a member of the Moonies, too. He
had just gotten out when I was in. I remember when he used to hand out pamphlets and mimeograph papers warning people about the church. I'm familiar with Steve Hassan.
I think that he was at the Berkeley chapter, right?
What?
He was at the Berkeley chapter, right?
Yes, he was. We were at the same house. I was at the house he used to be in. But he got his whole gig from Robert Lifton. The book Thought Reform and the Psychology of Totalism. That's where he adopted his whole shtick. He took it right from Lifton and then accentuated it, which is a great book. I highly recommend it. Now, here's another piece of my interview. You know, they called the sheriff to see if I had an arrest, and I did not. And she said I was a drug dealer, and I wasn't until I got out. So it's kind of humorous to look back on this stuff. This is Nelson Blackburn. He was the president of the Cleveland chapter of the Hells Angels. He started the Cleveland chapter. He was a local 17 iron worker. So was my father. I sent a bunch of articles that I snipped from my father's scrapbook to show that he was a local 17 iron worker. And I got to tell you, going through my dad's scrapbook was very rough. A lot of people in there, a lot of dead people, people that fell off the job. And both of my cousins are in there. One of them hit and killed the mayor of Cleveland's daughter. And my other cousin is in there. He was hit by a bus on a bicycle and dragged around in the wheel well for a couple blocks before the bus driver found out he hit him. And my grandfather was following him around with a gun. He was going to kill him. And he had his whole schedule down. And then my grandfather was hit in the head with an iron beam on the job. He was an iron worker too. So going through that scrap album was really rough for me to get those pieces of information. And
I'm starting to hear it. These are tough MFers. This is what they used to look like. These like iron workers and the Hells Angel types. Like these are grizzled.
Yeah, my dad worked with three of them. There were three of them in Local 17. And about 1969 or 70, one came roaring up our driveway. My dad invited him over for some beer, and the bus balls on the neighborhood. And the whole neighborhood came out, and all the kids and everybody was freaking out. And I got a 10 or 15-minute ride on the back of this bike with a fully patched Angel on the west side of Cleveland, and then dropped me off. That was my first experience with them. That was about 69 or 70, but my dad did work with three of them at Local 17.
Yeah, that's sad. There's Carl.
There's me and my mother in front of the Mark Hopkins. Her and my stepfather came out. They were on a big vacation and surprised me in Berkeley. It was not a welcome surprise at all. And I borrowed the jacket and the shirt. I had no decent clothes to wear. I looked pretty angular there. That was my speed days. That was a pretty crazy visit.
Nob Hill, San Francisco, yeah.
Yeah, I was a total surprise when they came out there. And then here's this guy. We knew him. My father knew him well, and I knew his kids. And he shot and killed his wife. You know, this fucking scrap album was really rough going through, I got to tell you.
Yeah, it's a lot of tragedy.
Bobby Palumbo, or Richie Callahan. Palumbo was the other guy. Yeah, all these articles I sent, it mentions Local 17. That was my dad's whole scrap album, was all this shit from Local 17 and some of the tragedies of our family.
Wow, yeah, that's rough.
I'm sorry. It was
okay.
Really rough going through this shit.
Here's
a couple of stills from the movie. This is Cody's books. You know where Cody's is.
Was.
That's right. This is me standing against the wall, and that's Michael Moriarty coming out the door. This is one of the scenes from the movie, Who Will Stop the Rain? It was a very violent drug movie, if anybody sees it. It's pretty violent and gritty. But I was in one scene and didn't know I was being filmed until we went to see the movie, and people are shoving their elbow in my ribs. And it's like, I didn't know. I did not know. There was
you playing the flute? Who is that? Which is it?
Oh, those are real Berkeley freaks. Those are real heads.
Where are you?
Right here, leaning against the wall with my foot up against the wall.
That's you with the long hair?
Yeah, it is me.
Wow.
I took these two shots from the disc. Now, there's the only evidence left of the Stark Hotel. You can see the sign says Hotel Stark. All those windows up top there were rooms. It's now, they gutted it in the mid-'80s, and now it's a high-end apartment complex. They redid the entire inside of it and fumigated it. But I managed to find that on the web.
Interesting.
Now, this is a better book than Sonny Barger's book, A Wayward Angel. This is George Wethern, who is the vice president of the Oakland Angels, and he got busted involving 2 murders. Some people were dug up on his property, and he basically ratted everybody out to save his ass. This is a much more truthful book than Sonny's book. I saw this book when it was in a manuscript form. Somebody came running into the Stark Hotel with a big black binder and said, George is publishing his book about what happened. And a whole bunch of us got to page through it real quick. And my old partner in crime, Old Man Jack, is mentioned in it. He's called a 40-year-old hippie in the book. Now, what did not make the book was the story of Old Man Jack walking into the Angels headquarters on 16th Street in Oakland. It was a slow day and everybody's playing cards. And Jack picked up a sawed-off shotgun and shot a round into the ceiling. And cards and chips and money flew and people were diving for weapons. That story did not make the book. But go ahead and flip it over. Old Man Jack and I sold crank together. I actually was I replaced him in the lab. He was the guy that was originally working in the lab with the chemist, and he couldn't take it anymore. He says, Carl, I'm too old. Ray screams all the time. He's a fucking rageaholic. I just can't take him screaming. So I took Jack's place, Old Man Jack, and you see right there, a 40-year-old hippie named Jack. And Jack was kind of a legendary character. He was a liaison between the Oakland Angels and the Berkeley Freaks. A lot of people know who he was that lived there through the late 60s and early 70s. He's dead now. He was murdered in prison. But yeah, that's Old Man Jack's claim to fame there.
Gotcha. There's Carl.
Now here's me and the guy I showed earlier from the hotel and my good buddy right there. I can't give his name. I've known him since he was 13 and I was 15. He'd kill me if I put his name out there. But we're down in Santa Cruz there. Now, what I can say is, if you look at you might get to it in another picture, the IMDb from Who Will Stop the Rain. Mm-hmm. You'll see that the filming was done in April of 77. And then I did my interview in the paper of July of 77. So you can see the timeline. In April of 77, I was in Berkeley getting filmed for the movie. And then I went back home. And in July of 77, I have short hair and I did the interview.
Gotcha.
And this is obviously when I went back and my hair was still short. So this is probably late 77 or early 78. Now, this is the early 2000s. That's my buddy that was in the last picture from Santa Cruz with the headband on.
Yeah.
He came out to visit me, and we did a walking tour of Berkeley and checked out all the old haunts. And you'll recognize that Sather Gate there.
Sure. The Mooney Squad usually was about 20 feet from there.
Yeah, they were in front of that. Yes, sir.
They always were. That's where everybody walked through so they could get the most
This is us about 2002, roughly. There's the old Campanile.
Yeah. That's the head administrative building, I believe, too. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's Sproul Hall.
Sproul Hall, yeah, that's right.
And there's me in front of what was Cody's books all these years later.
Yeah, they didn't make it, unfortunately.
Now there's me and my son, and we're in front of what was left of the Stark Hotel. My buddy was across the street and took a picture. It was funny. He said, I never thought I'd step foot in this state again, but he did come out and we went over there and fooled around for a day. Showed my son all the old haunts and told him all the old stories.
Cool.
And here we are in the famous eucalyptus grove on campus over there by Oxford Avenue.
Yeah, there's a lot of famous spots there. You ever go to Indian Rock?
No, I'd never heard of it.
North side. It's not on campus, but it's a really nice view, and it's like kind of a mountain climbing mecca, but it's a cool spot. Like if you ever get a chance, if you're back in Berkeley, look up Indian Rock. It has a great view of the bridge. I mean, the Gold Gate Bridge. Excuse me. I'm guessing that's you with the headband, huh?
Yeah, and good old Dad.
You guys definitely look like your relatives. That's the old man from the 50s and 60s too. A grizzled old iron worker. Holy smokes.
Yeah, he was a badass, man. He put up a lot of Cleveland, modern Cleveland, the local 17 iron workers. They did all the bridges and skyscrapers back then. he retired about 1988 or so. He ended up getting MS and dementia, but he did 34 years with the iron workers.
Wow, that's a lot of hard work. It's very dangerous freaking career for sure. These guys get hurt a lot. What else you got, Carl? Anything else you want to share?
All the pictures?
That's it.
Okay, yeah. Well, you could ask me something, whatever you want to do. I don't know where we're at with time.
I don't know. We're at the 30-minute mark. I mean, it's just interesting reminiscing about Berkeley at that time. Did anybody talk about the Patty Hearst or the Symbionese Liberation Army? I think they were at 74.
Yeah, that happened in 74. I got over there. It was already over. I didn't get to Berkeley till 75.
Right. So there was no like reverberations or anything.
Nah. The only people that made a big stink about that kind of stuff were basically the media. I mean, Berkeley was insane. So much crap went down there.
Oh, it was crazy. The students. I mean, it's the end. When did the Vietnam War end? 74?
Yeah, I think the draft stopped in 73, and then 74 the war ended. Now, what I can tell you is how I finally got out of this crap. At the end of 79, December 79, I had a knock at the door, and it was an angel, and he basically was moving in and said, "You're going to start giving me product and money." He was taking over. So he didn't have anything, and I said, I'm waiting to recop, come back tomorrow or whatever it was. I got on the phone and met the chemist and said, I'm out of here, man. I'm not going to end up in the Bay. I'm not going to end up, with a bullet in my head. And we parted friends. I was very loyal and kept my mouth shut. And he let me go. I called my dad and said, I got to get out of Berkeley and I can't hitchhike out or take a bus. And he sent a one-way ticket to San Francisco International. We paid for it. And I didn't have ID back then. I had no ID from spring of 75 until 1980. I had no ID. And at that time, I was also using 2 aliases. I'm not going to tell you what they were. But my dad had sent the ticket, and we used a code. So I showed up at TWA and said, I'm looking for a ticket from Carl Hassell. It was bought in Ohio, and I don't have any ID. There's a code. And in those days, you could do that. And she said, well, what's the code? And I said, Horizon West. She handed over the ticket and said, enjoy your flight. And you used to be able to do that with Western Union, too. You'd pick up, I'm waiting for $200 from so-and-so at Akron, Ohio. And they'd say, well, what's the code? And you say, Horizon West. And they say, well, here's your money. Thank you. And you can't do that anymore either. There was a time in this country when you could do those kind of things. And you could also send drugs through the mail to the main post office in any city. It's like, you'd tell your buddy would send you money in a birthday card to the main post office, let's say in Flagstaff, Arizona, and you bop in and say, I don't have any ID. I'm waiting for a general delivery package. You give them your name. They go back there and come back out and say, here you go. It just got here yesterday. And you can't do that anymore either.
Did you ever get busted?
No.
Yeah, just never.
I never got busted.
The demand was always there, huh, for all those years?
Yeah, and you know what? As far as our product went, that speed, I found out it was pure, but it was very unstable. And I found that out when I brought 28 grams with me to Grand Canyon. The people back then that worked up there at the Curio hotels, everything in the restaurants, they were all druggies, they were all drunks, and they could not get their money out fast enough. If you said Berkeley and drugs, it went. And I got to Grand Canyon and I had 28 bindles with a drop of liquid in them. The humidity change rendered the crystals into a viscosity like honey. It didn't lose any potency, so I had to give a gram away to somebody who I know was going to buy it all. And him and his roommate split it, and they came back and bought the other 27 grams. They took the whole load off of me.
What were you selling a gram for back then?
It was between $50, $60. I was told $75. I don't really remember. I talked to somebody recently who was there, and he said $75, but I'm sure it was less than that. I'm thinking the $50 to $60 range.
Were people smoking it or snorting it?
People were snorting it and injecting it.
Injecting, wow.
One of our best customers was a guy that worked at the Lawrence Livermore lab, and he would eat it. He'd put it in tissue paper and eat it with a milkshake or a hamburger. And he was the only guy I knew that did it like that. Everybody else injected it or snorted it.
Better high, yeah. I mean, how long would a gram last for if you were like a standard user?
Days and nights. A couple of it was too strong for me. A half a gram, and I would be up for 2 days and 2 nights. Wow. You could not shut your eyelids. It was extremely strong. And I was always a drunkie. I liked to drink. I was a beer pig. So I was never really into the speed thing. I did a lot of it, don't get me wrong. But I would much prefer to stay drunk.
Interesting. So you moved that a lot. Wow. How many grams would you make in a batch?
We would do a pound at a time.
Oh, wow.
So 8 ounces would go to the Angels, and the other 8 was me and this other guy would split and just sell the grams off.
Would they pay you anything, or was that just for protection, or what was that?
Excuse me. I just had my lifestyle financed. I'd eat out at sit-down tablecloth restaurants and blew a lot of money on hash and beer and concerts. I didn't really,
did the Hells Angels pay you cash for half of it?
I didn't see. No, they never gave me anything.
So you never saw the money, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I only dealt with the chemist.
Gotcha. The chemist.
And he had to have another lab because he would disappear for days on end, and we only made 1 pound at a time.
But the demand was there, so I get the beverage and food industry is just full of drunks and users of all.
Oh yeah, man! Wherever you go,
I used to work in there.
Society.
What's that?
It's the drugs of society. And I was in the food service business my whole life. I had a career as a cook, and gamblers and drug addicts.
Just drunks. I mean, I worked at some of the. Just incredible stuff. They had to kind of run them almost like a freaking brig or something because the employees were such a pain in the ass. Like drunken chefs, and people didn't show up, and authority issues. I mean, it didn't attract like the best and the brightest, and a lot of cokeheads. I don't know what it was, but the places I worked, they would either do meth or coke at night. It's weird too because like you work a full shift till 2, and then people would start doing drugs. Like go to bed.
Oh yeah,
no.
You work 12 or 14 hours and drink all night.
Yeah, really crazy stuff.
I remember.
Carl, it's good to talk with you again. Interesting stories. Berkeley, never boring. Lots of drugs there. There are always drugs there. Like even I was there before, marijuana was legal, but it was, dime bags. People could get dime bags. Coke. There were crack dealers. People would walk around. LSD, almost like a dead show. LSD. Weed, speed. Just say those words on television.
Yeah, it's easy to live when you're homeless there because there's always somebody looking for someone to distribute product. It's very easy to live when you're homeless over there, or used to be. I mean, I'm going back to the 1970s here.
I think it's probably grittier. I don't know. It's pretty gritty back then. It's pretty tough. Some tough customers out there, including the Hells Angels and things like that. But anyway, where can people reach out to you if they have any questions?
I'm on Twitter, Carl Hassell at 4, and Facebook. I'd be happy to talk more in depth about any of this stuff. Yeah, I could really get verbose with detail and bore the shit out of people, but my early life was pretty crazy, man. Pretty
you're the original Walter White to a certain extent, huh?
No.
Or what was his fake name? He had an alias too, right?
I think it was Eisenberg.
Eisenberg, that's right. Yeah, Eisenberg. Anyway, Carl, great to talk with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Stay there.